In this episode, Tom Fox and Megan Dougherty take up Thor, Love and Thunder. Hello, everyone. Well, we are back. Yes, Tom Fox and Megan Dougherty for our continued exploration of all things Marvel Cinematic Universe. Welcome back, Megan.
Thank you, Tom. As always, it is a pleasure to be here.
So we completed WandaVision. We had a ton of fun doing it, but now we're to some movies. And today we're going to take up Megan's personal favorite of all time ever, Thor. But it's Thor, Love and Thunder. So Megan, I guess as the Thor aficionado of our duo, where did you shake out on Thor, Love and Thunder, recognizing that Ragnarok may have been one of the greatest movies ever?
And the thing is, it's really hard to follow Ragnarok. Like any movie that has to follow that, get it thematically and with the same characters, is going to run into some trouble. The same deal with the end of the Infinity Saga. I think the movies that come out set immediately after that are just add a little bit of a disadvantage because the emotional buildup and release that happened with those movies was so intense. But it was I had fun with it. I went to see a movie for the first time since the pandemic started in theaters. So that was really fun getting to go see it alone because my partner will not go to superhero movies with me. But yeah, I thought it was a treat. It was beautiful. They got into some really great themes. The appearance of a new Thor was a lot of fun. And there was a little bit of also nice representation. I liked that they were getting into other gods and the god universe. Overall, I thought it was a good time without being one of the best movies ever. What about you?
I had a more either difficult or more nuanced relationship with the movie. The first time I saw
I'm to please when it comes to Thor.
yes, and the first time I saw it, I was a little disappointed. Part of it was, as you said, when you start out, the first 5 seconds of your action movie is the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin, and that's only the start because it rocked more from there. You're right, it's a tough act to follow. But on the second viewing, I really came around to thinking they added a level of subtlety, a level of context, and really a level of, I don't want to say maybe not sophistication, but a way that explained and filled out the Asgardian world very well. And it took you had to listen, you had to watch, and you couldn't just strap in and go along for the ride like we did with Ragnarok. But they're very different movies. And so I really came around on the second viewing to see there was quite a lot here. In fact, more than a ton. And you just touched on that much of it.
Yeah.
That tiny little bit. We have to start with Jane. Everybody loves Jane. I love Jane. You love Jane. We all love Jane. Thor loved Jane.
I extra love Jane in this movie.
So why did you extra love Jane?
What she got to at first, I thought she was so extremely relatable. Having such a difficult and challenging diagnosis and seeing that is such a relatable way for someone to deal with it. Trying to laugh it off, trying to have such this brave front, and then secretly trying to use your massive powers of science to save yourself instead of the world. So I thought it was really relatable. Getting to see her become the mighty Thor with those awesome biceps was just great. Really good superhero stuff. And she was so dorky when she became Thor. I think she was almost channeling a little bit of Ragnarok Thor or New Thor in that sort of dopey himbo style, which is really charming, but still being really sincere. I thought Jane Foster was great, and she had some great scenes and some genuinely epic tagline attempts.
It was in many ways a love. And we certainly saw, I think, Thor relatable in a human way, if I can even use that phrase that we hadn't seen before. He clearly loves and loved her and loves her to this day. I think it was in Infinity Wars. He saw her from afar, but he didn't get to speak to her. And I found that scene incredibly poignant in Infinity Wars when they go back to try to get the Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
But here it was just plain front, right and center, the love affair of the two. And I found it even more poignant, of course, given the diagnosis she received and how she was trying to work through that. But what did you think of the love?
I'm generally not a huge fan of romance in movies. Find them often distracting from the excellent explosions. But in this case, I think it was really well earned because it was really balanced for the first time. It had always been immortal, godlike creature and normal human scientist and this kind of unbalanced relationship where they're bringing different things to the table. They had a good run, of course, but now they're both gods, and they were coming at each other equally. And this was also, I think, the first time that Thor really respected her agency to make choices, even if they're ones that he wouldn't agree with, like using the Thor powers, even though it made her increasingly ill. He really respected that this was her choice. So I think when they did get back together and express their love, they were doing it as equals, and I really liked that.
So let's turn to the bad guy,
What a bad
Gore,
guy!
the bad guy.
I don't
And
think he
what
got
did
enough screen time. My
you
big one.
think of the explanation of how or why he became a bad guy? Was that good enough?
I think the origin story was great. I think it made perfect sense. And I love that the Necro sword, he almost got it. It reminded me of King Arthur pulling the sword out of the stone, just the way it
Exactly.
came to him. And it really gave him this mission that seemed quite legitimized by metaphysical forces. And his god was a jerk and probably didn't deserve worship or to rule. No, I thought he was a fantastic villain, and just the acting was incredible. His presence was awesome. His fights were awesome. I wish we'd seen a lot more of them, though, because he's called Gore the God Butcher, but you don't get to see too many god murders. And I would have liked to see a little more of that to kind of, I think, increase the terror that everyone else would have been feeling.
So let me turn to, frankly, a part that I was very disheartened by, which was the gods on Olympia, specifically Zeus.
The
I had
Greeks.
never really put the Greek gods in the same pantheon as Thor or other
Mhm.
superheroes from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. At first, I wasn't quite sure what to think, but on second viewing, I thought, well, why can't Hercules be a superhero? Why can't any of the immortals be superheroes? Maybe they're distant cousins, and that's cool. One's Nordic, one's Greek. That's cool too. But the Greek gods did come out very well in this. So I, for one,
I
am a
mean,
huge Greek god fan. So I was a little disappointed in that. Was my disappointment misplaced or too overwrought?
I think historically they're not great. Like I thought it was pretty fair play, especially with Zeus. He was not known as a benevolent god by any means. He was not a nice guy. Much more focused on, I think, the pleasure of self. Historically, I'm quite a big fan of the Greek gods as well. But what I really like was the idea, this other echelon of being, of the kind of the divine. And they do hang out, and they're not terribly different from humans other than that in their lifespan or their powers. I thought it was pretty cool and well done. And I thought Zeus being an arrogant, irritating showman I thought it was well played. I really enjoyed that.
There was a couple of brief cameos by two, I think, of our favorite lesser roles in this series. Of course, the beloved Darcy that we saw quite a bit in WandaVision, but also we saw Idris Elba as Heimdall make an appearance, even though he's allegedly dead in one other, and I guess in Infinity.
Boy,
Say again?
I just said, oh boy, I was so excited because that was the second post-credit stinger, which I wasn't
Right.
even expecting. And so one, Valhalla is real. The characters we know and love in there. And are they going to do a Valhalla movie? Because I really want them to do a Valhalla movie with all of the dead characters, please. That would be awesome.
That would be pretty cool. And even the professor was in as well. All great little minor cameos, if I guess that's the right word, for some of the actors that we do enjoy so much. Any other maybe Easter eggs that you enjoyed?
Oh, there were a bunch of them. And I'd also like to get your opinion on the army of baby Thors in one of the final fight scenes. Maybe we can start there because, when they are having the final battle with Gore, the God Butcher, and there's all these kids who have been kidnapped and they've been really brave and it's been great. And they are all given temporarily the power of Thor. What did you think of that kind of as a plot device, as an action scene, as a parent?
Once again, my really opinion of all of the baby Thors evolved because the first time around I thought it was a little bit silly, but the second time around I thought even Thor was a child once. And all of these gods that we're talking about, Olympus, were children once. And the baby Jedi came, the
Yes.
Jedi's
Yeah.
came from children. So why can't you have that as well? And the way they were able to take, as I think you said, agency of their own destinies, I became pretty impressed with second viewing.
Very cool. Very cool. In terms of little things I liked, pretty much every scene that Valkyrie was in was great.
Let's talk about Valkyrie a little bit because, you
Please.
know, yeah. So we saw her in Infinity War, saw her in Ragnarok. We saw a little bit of her origin story in Ragnarok, and she really pulled herself up from the depths. And what do you think of her as a character? Let's visit her.
Really like her, and not just because I think she's, other than Loki, maybe one of the first canonically queer EU characters. That on Olympus, the little hand kiss with the handmaiden, be still my heart. That just about ended me right there. excellent. But I thought she was hilarious. I love that she had taken on the role of king and is king of Asgard and has done a phenomenal job. It's now a major tourist destination. They're probably making money hand over fist at Infinity Cones, the ice cream store. Brilliant. Also, she wants to get back to her roots of being a legendary warrior on a winged horse. I love the relationship she had with Jane, how they were friends and talking each other up and just enjoying each other's company. She didn't bat an eye at the mighty Thor, becoming the mighty Thor. I thought she was marvelous. And she had no problem also at the end being like, hey, now you guys have to go finish the thing. And I'm going to stay here and do the things that I have to do because she is a responsible ruler. One of the great characters in the MCU, in my opinion.
When Thor made her king or queen or the head or leader of Asgard, was that because he knew she was a superhero, or did he see in her that ability for growth beyond just being a great warrior, to be truly a leader of her people?
Yeah, I think he saw a lot of qualities in Valkyrie that he probably wishes he had. Really good organization, a really good executory power to be able to conceive things and then get them done. I think Thor has always been a little more reactive. And that's who he is, reacting to things that are going on, but he's not an administrator. And I think
not an administrator. We have now hit the all-time high in our entire MCU series. Thor, not an.
But towns need to be administered.
We have to change the name of this podcast series.
But he's a great leader and had been, I think, a leader, or at least a warrior before, and knew how these things were to be run. So I think it was great that she was made king and that Thor recognized, hey, he's got to go off and kind of deal with some of his stuff because he had a lot of stuff to deal with. And I also wish we'd gotten to see a little more of him hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, because that was fun. The montage at the beginning was charming. I thought very on brand. But he wasn't the one to stay at home on Earth with the day-to-day management of a mini kingdom.
I thought that was the same story with the Guardians. He never stays anywhere long.
It's true.
And as much as I enjoyed his time with the Guardians, and it certainly could portend some great adventures and interpersonal dynamics between all of them, I just don't think he's going to stick around. He keeps moving.
I think he's going to stick around with love. I think, what a lovely end, becoming Uncle Thor.
And he would make a great uncle.
He's a great uncle. I think he's going to do a really good job parenting a child with laser eyes.
How cool would that be to go, yeah, Uncle's Thor?
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
That would seem like a great way for us to end this episode. We've got a couple up next that are tangentially related. So I hope our listeners will join us for our next couple of episodes where we look at Spider-Man Coming Home and then Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Okay.
I'm Tom Fox.
And I'm Megan Dougherty. Can't wait to see you next time.
This is Tom Fox again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Because That's What Heroes Do, an exploration of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Tom Fox and Megan Dougherty. I'm pleased to announce we were winners of the W3 Award for Best Podcast in Pop and Culture. Thanks again for listening. I hope you'll join us again for our next episode.